All right, good. I promised I would go live, so we're gonna go live. It's pretty late in the morning. I'm quite sleepy myself. I did get a little rest, but I didn't get much rest. But promised you guys I'd go live, so I'm going live right now. Let's see here. It's 2 o'clock in the morning where I live. Atlantic Standard Time, Eastern Standard Time. And there's a lot that's still on the plate. But as with all things, we're going to do this stream. You see the title of the stream? So we're going to get to it. It is the DCEU up to this point now. And we'll talk about how we can restore the Snyderverse. How the DCEU doesn't need rebooting. We talked about rebooting already. And I'll show you with the series of movies that come up, the amount of characters in the DCU that have been established. Even if the movies didn't do well at the box office, there are some characters that have been established in the DCEU. And because it's so rich, there's no need to shift it and carry it into the DCU, but instead carry it on forwards, just including the Snyderverse in there. You know, so that's the trick to it. We're going to talk about that tonight. First things first, there's a lot of stuff we still have to do here. So let me see if I can get that all sorted out here. So one of the first things I need to do is copy this link here. This video. Just let everyone know we are streaming right now. Streaming. Okay, I see somebody watching. That's cool. All right, so I just have to share on Twitter and Facebook that we are live right now. So, as we're here, I am Christ, I am Disciple. You're watching my channel. If you want to join us as a guest, the link is right there in the chat section. But if you want to just chop it up in the chat, that's fine by me as well. Now they call it the DCU. But actually it is the DCEU, the DC Extended Universe is what we like to call it. Okay. Already 5 minutes in, just trying to get everybody on the stream. We have to give ourselves an extra 5 minutes. Sorry, this is taking a lot of time. I have to go into some scripture first, so it's all of that I got to do. So it's gonna take a little bit of time. Right now, already 5 minutes, almost 6 minutes have just disappeared on us. So I hate when videos just kind of run like that, but that's the only way I can do it right now. I'm just sending out the message. It is very late in the night, by the way. It's very, very late in the night. So all of that's. But I said I would keep my word. I need to keep my word. I was prepping for this for a while. So this is what it is. Whenever you guys catch it, you catch it. I didn't want to take too long either. This is not actually one of those videos that needs to take very long. What we can do here. Okay, the message is being sent out. It looks like it'll take me a decent 10 minutes, sorry, to get this done. I got a scripture for you guys. I want to get into the scripture as soon as I can. Then I'll get into what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so that's all up there. All right. All right, so now that we're done with that, let's get into the scripture one time, and then we'll get into the discussion pretty quickly. All right. So we're on StreamYard. If you want to, like I said before, if you want to come on this as a guest, you can. It is very late in the night. The link is right there. I'm actually displaying the link on the screen right now. So if you want to join as a guest, it's in the chat section. God bless you guys. I'm about to do what I do. John chapter 10, verses 1 to 5 says this. I assure you, anyone who sneaks over the wall of a sheepfold, rather than going through the gate, is either a thief or he's a robber. For a shepherd enters into the gate, and the gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice and come to him. He calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out. After he has gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them, and they follow him because they recognize his voice. They won't follow a stranger. They will run from him because they do not recognize his voice. Now, some of you will know what I'm talking about when I talk about this. Some of you are going to be familiar with recognizing the voice, because recognition is something where familiarity, right? So none of us are going to trust someone we don't know, we've never met before. It's people we recognize. It's people we've had a relationship with that we trust, right? We trust people who we know. Similarly, and they know us by name. Similarly, in the walk of life, you're going to have people who you can trust because you know them from way, way back. And they've proven themselves to you. You know them. So in life, you're going to know people and trust people who have proven themselves to you. And those are the people you're willing to listen to and to sometimes heed their advice and admonition. Similarly, as the Creator has made us and we get to know the Creator, we can trust him and we follow him. And that's why I'm even called Christ. I am a disciple. I follow Christ because I know him. I trust him. Even when I don't follow him perfectly, I know he will help me to follow him perfectly. And similarly with the DCEU, on both ends of the spectrum, both the fans and the people, the creatives, and the people responsible for funding the DCEU, the executives and the sponsors, have to understand and know what the DCEU is to be able to trust the process. The audience, the fans trusting the product that's coming out, the executives and the sponsors trusting the creatives to create the thing that they want to see, the creatives trusting a process that may be put in place and so that they can create within that space. Okay. Now, why that's so important to understand is because what I'm going to do with you guys is I'm going to, first of all, go through the DCEU and the movies we've had so far. And we're going to see the raw materials and the infrastructure of the DCEU. And from there, we get the answer of how to proceed forward with the DCEU, why restoring the Snyderverse is important, why preserving the DCEU is important. And we can't necessarily eliminate what is there already, but we can work with it. All right, so let's get into it. So the beginnings, I'm going to use my phone. The beginnings of the DCEU, it began with this movie, Man of Steel. All right. Once again, I'm just going to pop this up here. You guys can always, at any time you want, there you go. Anytime you want, you can pop in here as a guest if you feel like talking. I know it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, so I don't expect people to come through and do that. But there it is, Man of Steel. Now, go this way. All right, Man of Steel. Now, Man of Steel was the beginning of the DCEU. It was Zack Snyder's first DCEU movie. It was to start the DCEU, right? It set a tone for the DCEU, but it would not necessarily be the tone that defines the DCEU. Clearly, it wasn't, because they did a tonal shift. All right, so this was the beginnings of the DCEU. We call it the Snyderverse because at this point in time, this was purely Zack Snyder's vision for the DCEU. This was the starting point. Christopher Nolan, David Goyer, and Zack Snyder brought forth this movie. All right, and you're going to find out that the DCEU has had several influences on itself. Okay, put it over here. All right, there you go. That's perfect. All right, so it's Man of Steel. Began with Man of Steel. All right, then we had Batman v Superman. This is the Ultimate Edition I'm showing you guys here. This is the better format. Well, what came out in cinemas was Batman v Superman, the theatrical cut, which was a slightly compromised vision that Zack Snyder had. Basically the same story, but compromised vision. Now, the thing about it is, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, right? Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice was the second DCEU movie. And it doubled down on the tone that the first DCEU movie had. It was very new to cinema. It was a very novel way of carrying out comic book movies that hadn't been carried out in extremely long time. We've had so many comic book movies in time. You know, a lot of people don't remember Conan the Barbarian, Blade, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this in the spirit of those kinds of movies took center stage. Serious tone. The movie took itself seriously. It was a sort of thriller drama. right? Emotional stakes, a lot of stakes involved. A fantastic movie. That was the second one in the DCEU. The third one was The Suicide Squad, a compromised movie. David Ayers cut up the movies a little bit different. It was the third DCEU movie, and there was a tonal shift in it. It was funnier. The storyline was thinner, not as flushed out as BVS or Man of Steel. There were some emotional elements, but it was mostly character driven. Okay. Now, the studio did interfere with it. The executives weren't convinced of the vision that Zack Snyder was having, so they tried a tonal shift from it with this movie. And then we had Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was, again, studio influence to some degree. It had a tonal shift away from the first two DCU movies, even though it still had the same sort of composition and tone, and look of the earlier DCEU movies. So both Suicide Squad and also Wonder Woman had the look and tone of the earlier DCEU movies, but there was a slight tonal shift away from, purely serious content. It was still a sincere movie. It had a few very hilarious, funny moments, but it had a slight tonal shift away from the first two DCU movies. It had more fantasy in it, and it didn't always explain the fantasy. However, it started off extremely grounded. Okay. So it's important to understand Wonder Woman was an extremely successful DCU movie. And as like I said before, the sheep hear the voice of the shepherd. The executives thought that, led by Jeff Johns, because Jeff Johns was the head of the DCEU, Zack Snyder was no longer the guy sort of calling the shots in the DCEU. They thought that they had the formula right there, because it got great critical reception. It made a ton of money, and they thought that shift that they were doing was successful. Now, mind you, Zack Snyder wrote the story for this, even though his story, his version, is a lot different in many respects in terms of time and other things. But mind you, when he was making BBS, the tonal shift had already happened, and Patty was doing World War II. And a slightly different story. But because the picture that appeared in BBS was of a picture in World War I. Sorry, not World War II, but World War I. Now, it's important to understand that Wonder Woman was successful in spite of the tonal shifts, in spite of the the executive arm having some say. Now, mind you, the director, the creative that was doing Wonder Woman, fiercely fought for this particular scene you're seeing here, which is No Man's Land. Okay, let's keep it moving. Now, after that was Justice League 2017. Now, the executives had the opportunity to complete Zack Snyder's Justice League. And because Zack Snyder was no longer present, Josh Whedon had been brought on board to do some rewrites. He took over the movie. And the tonal shift of that movie, which is still considered to this day canon, was a lot more campy, fun, filled with jokes, diluted down, a lot more color. You see how much color is there. And it was the most tonally shifted movie of all of the DCU movies to this point. Um, the tone was changed dramatically. The look was changed dramatically. Um, the interaction of the characters was changed dramatically. It started off sort of like a Zack Snyder film, but it ended up being, so if you look at these movies here, they all have a similar sort of look, right? So you can see that, can you? You can see that, can you? Look at that. It's BVS. Even the Suicide Squad, look at the look there. Even though they tried to put a lot more color into it, and they had all of this spunky music, but the general look, feel, and tone was similar to the DCEU at that time in those earlier movies. You look at Wonder Woman, same thing. It had a little bit more color, but still more or less in the same kind of cinematography. But this is starkly different. You can see that. Colors are popping. And so they did a tremendous tonal shift, and they moved the movie away. In fact, I remember here with Wonder Woman movie, they called it a Marvel movie, and they said it was similar to Captain America, the First Avenger. That's how they described it. But actually, it really wasn't a Marvel movie. It was its own thing. Okay, so this one was like a Marvel movie, no doubt about it. And just the physics, the movement, the tone was very, very different. Okay, and then here's Zack Snyder's Justice League, which falls in line with the other 4 movies we saw before Justice League. And the tones retained. And so the feel is very much like those earlier movies. See the feel right there. This is a great moment where Superman appears to save the day. Tremendous. So it's not that these movies are desaturated. It's not that people say it's desaturated. It's not desaturated. It's that there's a what do we call it? A grading. There's a certain type of grading that is done. So there's a lot of color there, but it's influenced by the shades and gradings of the place, right? Let's keep moving. So this movie here pretty much resolves the movie before, because this one is the actual director's vision, almost complete vision. We're still missing the Green Lantern at the end and a couple of few other things. This movie's as comprehensive as it gets. This is a Zack Snyder will get with a movie. All right, and it's his greatest movie in my opinion. Now, after the Justice League debacle, they doubled down on the Marvel look and feel. Aquaman was so the executives decided to go in a different direction, and so the tone of the movies changed, and the movies had a lot more humor. There was a lot more wackiness and a lot of pop in color, because our criticism of Zack Snyder's movies and the DCEU is colorless, which is not true. if anything, it's more like a cinema. You have overarching colors that may dominate something, but no. And so they kept it really basic. It's like a child in a store. You got all these popping colors here. So here he is. You can see the gold. It almost looks like yellow and green, and the colors are really popping. Really popping. Oh my God. Anyway, that's Aquaman. But what it did is it sort of enriched the DCEU. It sort of said, well, DCEU movies don't have to be one kind of way, even though when people get used to the one kind of way, it's good. So it kind of, what you have to understand is this is the evolution of the DCEU. It's growing, it's developing. there's little infighting, there's controversy, but it's causing the DCEU to sort of morph into something original and new. Okay, it's forcing that. So even whether I agree with this or not, whether I like this or not, it's providing variety, and that's the important thing to understand. It's saying the DCU can be many things, right? All right, let's keep it moving. After Aquaman, we have Shazam. And once again, Shazam is popping those colors. Look at those colors, bursting with color. Shazam had a lot of color. And so the executive arm sort of wanted to emphasize on that. So they went with this. And Shazam as a character is funny. So this is not anything. He's a little hip and a little funny teenage boy. So that was Shazam. And that's actually I believe it's a dance from Fortnite. So I think it's a Fortnite dance, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, hip and with the times and that kind of thing. That was David Sandberg's movie, and that's Zachary Levi acting as Shazam, Billy Batson. And as we see, the DCU is now stuck in color, and the color is popping with every single movie. Every single movie. So the experiment they did with and hijack David Ayer's Suicide Squad, they then doubled down on Justice League. And from Justice League 2017, they started popping with colors, and they never stopped. So they've been holding on to this for a while, and this movie flopped at the box office. Plenty color, there you go. Bursting with color, don't you love it? Wonder Woman 84, more color. Bursting with tremendous color here. Wonder Woman 84. And there you go. Woo! That flopped as well. But here's the thing. I want you to understand. Let me go back a little bit. All right, so after Justice League 2017, bit by bit, the DCEU, whether you know it or not, is being enriched, because not only are we doing backstories of these characters, but we're getting characters with those characters. So we get to know a little bit more about Mira, Vulko, Orm, Black Manta, the king of Mira's dad, and so on and so on and so on. So what is happening is, whether you think these characters are for good or for evil, they're enriching the DCEU. You're getting these characters, you're building up the universe, right? So with Shazam, where are we? Shazam, we get to see the Shazam family, right? Because at the end of this movie, you have Shazam and the whole Marvel family. You also have Shazam's parents. You get to know Shazam's background. You get to know some villains. You get to know about Shazam himself, the wizard. So there's all of that going on here as this story develops. You're building up the DCEU. It's no longer just Superman alone, but these characters, whether they're successful or not. And in this case, Shazam was successful at the box office. Not as successful as the studio wanted, but it was successful. And then when you do this, you now introduce some more characters, from the hyena all the way up to these characters here. So you're enriching the universe. Now, how these characters are used and what kinds of stories you do with these characters is also important. You understand? But you're building the universe. Whether this thing flopped or not, you're building the universe, because now these characters exist in that universe. So with Wonder Woman 84, now we get We get Cheetah, who's in that universe. We get uh, um, um, forget what the guy who had the wish became the wishing stone. I forgot what his name was. Um, Manswell, right? Maxwell Lord, Maxwell Lord. You got that in this story. It's enriched, and you know you get to see one of the Amazons in this story, right? So it adds to the story. It may be wacky, it might be crazy. You put the character in some wacky situations. I guess they want to do a kiddie flip or some flick or something. It's not a very grounded movie at all. The story's got plot holes and stuff. But at the end of the day, even though this movie is terrible and flops at the box office, people love Gal. In fact, I can tell you right now, to this day, I have a Wonder Woman lovers group. My goodness, they love Gal. They can't see anybody else's Wonder Woman, and that's because you've established this character. This character is established in the universe. She's got 2 solo movies, more than Superman and more than Batman. She's got 2 solo movies. Well, actually, Superman's got more solo movies. Well, he didn't have a solo movie per se, but there's a lot more movies about him. Okay, so they established this character, and it doesn't matter if her suit's shining and popping with colors. It don't really matter because at the end of the day, you've established this character and also ancillary characters, right? You also had, like I said before, Cheetah, and you have Maxwell Lord, and he's still alive. I don't know if he's still alive to this day, but he's still alive. So he's there. And with the Wonder Woman movie, oh, let me just backtrack a little bit for Wonder Woman. With the Wonder Woman movie that's here, hold on a second. Oh, this would be here. Oh, come on. Yeah, with the Wonder Woman movie that's here, remember there's Dr. Poison, Ludendorff, he's killed, right? Ares is dead, but Dr. Poison's still around, right? So that's the fun thing about these things. You still have characters to play with. And with hold on a second. With here, right? With BVS, Doomsday is still around. He's dead, but his carcass is still around, right? Nohoon 100, shout out to Nohoon 100, says, dang, I'm so surprised. I love Gal so much because when she was announced as Wonder Woman, I was so against it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. I want to show you some other things that are very interesting and intriguing. See, with world building, you can't just discard things. Okay. Here, Steppenwolf doesn't die, but over here, Steppenwolf dies. But guess what? You can see him in the background. Darkseid's still around. The Furies are possibly around. You have, so there's a lot of potential and possibility, you know, to take the Snyderverse and run with it. And I'll show you why the Snyderverse can work and so on. Because you have the raw materials, you know, again, we have Black Manta is still here. We also have Orm, and they're still alive. Excuse me. All right. They really love Gal. Okay, then we have the Suicide Squad. Now in the Suicide Squad, some of the earlier Suicide Squad fun people like Captain Boomerang has been killed off. The head of the Suicide Squad, Rick Flag, is killed off. We still have Harley Quinn, and we have some new members of the Suicide Squad. Peacemaker, I thought he was dead. I don't know if he was killed off in that. Bloodshot, he's still, Bloodsport's still alive, and 1 or 2 other people, Ratcatcher, one of them. But the point is, at the end of the day, I think Peacemaker was killed. So I think the Peacemaker series that you see is a background on Peacemaker. Nohu 100 says, did you speak on the contradiction on if she's ever returning as Wonder Woman 3? I heard DC say like today she's not coming back. Well, quite frankly, I am not really into that right now. But this video is really about the DCU and just seeing how rich it is when in terms of characters and also how we can proceed forward. So I don't really care if they say she's coming back or she's not coming back. It doesn't really matter to me. I can tell you this: if they announce that she's not coming back, it's going to be detrimental to them because I'm telling you right now, a lot of people are really fanatical about Gal. So Gal's one of those characters, they've been very careful not to say much about because I know they want to reboot her, but that's going to be painful because a lot of people love Gal's rendition of Wonder Woman. I tell you, I have a group, and it's like hundreds and hundreds of posts and hundreds of people join that group every day. Okay, every day. So no, you don't really want to mess with Gal, but it is what it is. Whatever they do, it's gonna have repercussions. All right. So this was James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. It flopped at the box office once again. The cinematography was improved, even though there was still a lot of bursting color in it. But the cinematography is much better. All right. This is pretty good cinematography. Notice everything's kind of blue or whatever. The tone. It's called color grading. It's properly color graded. I didn't particularly like this movie because of the promos and stuff, so I didn't even watch it. I've watched pieces of it, but I haven't watched it. It's not my kind of movie, quite frankly. But again, the DCEU stretching itself in tone. This time, the tone of this movie, is it like the Snyderverse? It's kind of like the Snyderverse. It's using characters that started in the Snyderverse, but it's still the comedic beats and tones more like a Marvel movie, like Guardians of the Galaxy on steroids. Nohu says, okay, thanks so much. Yes, Nohu, no problems at all, my friend. Then we got Black Adam. Black Adam is as Snyderish and Snyderverse as possible. It's still bursting with color, as you can see. It's amazing. James Gunn's movie is actually not as colorful as these movies. But anyway, it's bursting with color, and there you go. The man himself, the man in black, Black Adam. This movie was much more brutal. Should have been rated R. It should have let it go all the way, but it didn't. It has a balance in color. It still has color, but it's also gritty. Gives you a gritty feel, but yet at certain points it's wacky and funny, and so it doesn't really know what it wants to be. The DCEU is still trying to figure out, the execs are still trying to figure out what to do. And I say execs, I'm not talking about the people who actually directed the movie, because nobody remembers the director's name that directed this movie. All they remember is The Rock. So this again has a different feel and tone. This movie almost broke even, still flopped. So you can tell that the executives of Warner Brothers don't know where they're going, and they're experimenting all the time with things. In so doing, they're kind of giving different feels and tones to the DCEU in their experiment. So the DCEU is becoming very versatile, even though it's failing to make money. Okay, because you're getting different tones and different feels, but the audience is not vibing with it. Now, the reason that happened is because when they did the tonal shift away from the Snyderverse, the executive arm of Warner Brothers was so anti-Zack Snyder. Oh no, Zack Snyder's Justice League is not canon. No, we're not trying to have Zack Snyder back at it. So you see, by doing a process of elimination, by trying to eliminate certain things, you limit the diversity. Now, if Warner Bros. Can accept this diversity and say, you know what, Snyderverse is part of the DCEU, you add to the richness of the DCEU, and also I believe you will spark back in life into the DCEU. So it's not about being King Midas. We're not saying uh, don't do different tones for the DCEU because you've done them already. So we can't change that. What we're saying is include these tones here, because if you notice, this movie did better than most of the DCEU movies. And the reason is the tone of the movie wanted to be a Snyderverse movie. It felt like it wanted to be a Snyderverse movie. The problem with it is because of people's egos, they did not connect to the Snyderverse. Had they done that, it would have done well. Like I said before, rebooting a universe, this was supposed to be a reboot. Rebooting a universe sets you back. You should run on the momentum of the universe and its diversity, right? Aquaman, the reason Aquaman did well, even though it was popping with colors and it was terrible, is because Jason Momoa rode off the success of Zack Snyder. And by asking for the Snyder cut, and rejecting Justice League 2017, he basically rode the wave. And I'm not saying that you have to do your movies like the Snyderverse movies. Obviously, with the DCEU, Aquaman is a perfect example. That's not a Snyderverse movie, to be honest with you. That's James Wan's thing. And it worked because you didn't reject what came before. You embraced it. Even Shazam, the first Shazam movie, embraced BVS. As a result, the movie was successful. But when you try to deny that these things exist, you deny the characters appearing in certain things. And this is what happens. Now, we had cameos with the characters in certain movies, but once again, the characters were not Snyderverse characters, showing that you decided, you doubled down, you said, no, we're not doing Zack Snyder anymore. We don't want Zack Snyder anymore. And so as a result of that, you know what happened. Okay? And Black Adam, man, gosh, The Rock looked terrific in this movie. I'm not going to lie. Look how strong he looks. Oh my God, he looks fantastic. A lot of effort and work was put into Black Adam. There's no doubt about that. All right. So the next one we have here is Shazam 2, Shazam Fury of the Gods. What was this movie's undoing is the politics. That Zachary Levi decided to align with the studio. I mean, let's not get twisted. This movie is popping with color once again. He aligned with the studio, started speaking a lot of anti-Zack Snyder movie stuff and haircut and all of that. And he kind of sabotaged the movie because nobody wanted to support it. But once again, you had the Marvel family, which you're seeing here. Then you had the gods, whatever god survived. You have Shazam and so on and so on and so on. So the movie actually even had Wonder Woman in it, which was good. I think in the first Shazam, they tried to have Superman in it as well. It was a double for Gal. I think Gal did one or two things in it. So they tried to link one of the Trinity members into this movie. But it still backfired because of so much bad will. So many bad things happened that the fan base just didn't support the movie. But I'll be honest with you. I mean, I didn't like what they did with Gal either, with the jokes that they did with Gal. But to be honest, David Sandberg did, he tried always to link up with Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm not too sure if Shazam held Zack Snyder's Justice League as canon. I know in one of the ads for Shazam, they pulled stuff from Zack Snyder's Justice League. And then finally, the last movie, which is also a flop, was The Flash. Notice though the cinematography now starting to balance out. They're using the color grading and tones that Zack Snyder used to use in their own way. The CGI was terrible because once again the studio interfered with this movie so many times. There was so many different versions, so much last minute changes that the VFX people really had a lot of work cut out for them. So it didn't look complete and finished. Just sad. And also we had change of management and all of that. But the point is, even though they killed off the villain of the movie, sort of. They sort of rehashed villains from Man of Steel, and then they killed off the Flash, which could have been a villain. So you don't really have anything to work with. You just have Barry Allen now showing you a multiverse. Kind of opened the door to the multiverse, their version of the multiverse. And what makes this interesting is that it opens the door for the Snyderverse to be present. It opens the door for several DC film verses now to be present, whether it's, the Tim Burton verse, the Donnerverse, etc., etc. So the Schumacher verse. So it really opens up a lot. And it sort of, because of this movie, now more than ever, you can have the Snyderverse involved in the DCEU, and the DCEU's just kind of expanded and become something much bigger. So at any point in time, you can go to the Snyderverse, or you can go to this verse or to that verse, etc. So I thought that was very interesting. So these are the sort of things that are opening the door to more possibilities. Okay. These movies have opened the door to more possibilities. Are they the ideal thing? Is this what we wanted as fans? No. But it opens the door for possibilities. The air cut, it's opened the door for that possibility. Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3, it opened the door for that possibility, etc., etc., etc. So when Zack Snyder is supporting Blue Beetle, when David Ayer is supporting Blue Beetle, they're supporting it as a movie, obviously. It could be because there's a possibility that the door could open for all of these different universes that people were talking about to happen. And as a result, everybody can be happy. Everybody can be happy in the DCU, because the DCU has stretched the tonality, and it's a fabric now for all kinds of movies. Of course, they kind of doubled down on this kind of movie, which is very colorful, jokey filled. They've done it for a succession of movies now in the DCEU, and they have different color gradings and tones. There's a spectrum of stuff now out there. You kind of double down on one particular type of tone of movie, but very much it can open the door for a spectrum of tones. And so because of that, it doesn't make sense to reboot that. What makes sense to do is continue with it, but to have that diversity there, because now you have all these different kinds of characters, and now you can make your films taking those characters, not just one version of them, but any spectrum of versions of them, because we have a multiverse. And that's what makes this quite interesting. Going forward, I'm going to show you something else here. Now, so that, again, Warner Brothers has the opportunity to not reboot, but to literally forge forward with a lot of tools at their disposal, not to mention how many characters they have now, to close down this universe, or even to reboot the universe and just have a certain spectrum of characters there, is to really deny it its full potential. Okay. So that's why I'm trying to now, this video is to enlighten people on the potential that's there with the DCEU. Once you start to define the DCEU by tone, it's no longer can you do that, because it's something that can do both light and funny, even though the light and funny movies, to be honest with you, have not been successful, right? The audience in the DCU, you need to have a certain degree of groundedness. Why Wonder Woman works so well, and even Aquaman to a lesser extent, is because Wonder Woman was grounded in the world of that Zack Snyder had built. Even Suicide Squad was grounded in that world. With Aquaman, it was in its own world. It sort of departed from what the Snyder Cut was doing, but because it attached itself to the Snyder Cut. Remember, this universe started off of Zack Snyder's direction, and Christopher Nolan and David Goyer. So if you're going to depart from that, You should still link yourself to it. And what they tried to do was in mouth service, they tried to link to these things, but they were so deceptive and lying because of what happened in Justice League 2017 that the sheep know the voice and thieves come in to steal. The trust between the fans and the audience with the executive arm was broken. I will never forget when Tony Abbott said that Joss Whedon was coming in to just touch up and finish what Zack Snyder did. And that trust was violated when he lied about that. You know? So I think that is a critical thing. The audience and even the fans, particularly the fans, don't trust Warner Brothers. That trust has been broken. And you know, all of these movies that came out could have succeeded if they had kept the Snyderverse and if they had allowed Zack Snyder's Justice League to be canon to the universe, and to say, well, listen, Zack Snyder's Justice League is canon, but since it's a multiverse, this happened in an alternate universe. Justice League 2017 happened in an alternate universe. That's all you had to do. That was all you had to do. And actually, the Flash movie sets it up for that to happen now. So that you don't say this is canon or that is canon. No, this is in this universe, and that's in that universe. It really opens up that opportunity. Again, Warner Brothers always seem to have these tremendous opportunities, and then they take them and they just destroy them to hell. Okay? You have to work with what has come before you, you know, build off of it. These are building blocks. You don't want to be rebuilding the thing. You don't want to spend 10 years building back up a universe. That's stupid, you know. And so that's why you know, James Gunn coming on the scene for DC. If he stays on the scene somehow, some way, he should try to coordinate and work with the other directors. He should try to coordinate and work with the executive arm to get a cohesive structure where it's a multiverse. Okay, it's a multiverse. I'm gonna do my little thing here, and then Zach can do his thing there, and you have two independent things, Elseworld stuff, and whoever. And you have to take your ego and throw it in the bin. You have to. Executives, everybody. You can't be trying to push for what you want. You have to give the audience what it wants. And in the process of giving the audience what it wants, you feed them something that you wanted to say. Because you don't have to satisfy them all the way. You in fact, if I was you, I'd do something controversial somewhere in there. So they're going along, and then boom, you throw them for a loop, and they're like, what? You know what I mean? You don't want them to agree on everything. You don't want them to go to sleep. You want them to wake up. You want them to discuss things. You want them to think about stuff. You know, this should be always a message of some kind in these movies. And of late, I think the stories have been very, very thin. It's like an adventure quest, and you're going along an adventure, but there's no real, you know, there's maybe one take home, like in the Flash. Is you don't really want to change time. You might sort of accept what the reality is before you, and blah 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 blah. Nothing really new, nothing to stimulate thought, nothing really. It's just a simple concept and not necessarily true. And you could go back in time and change it. Would you? You know, that's the question. So, you know, I think that, you know, it's good that this has kind of happened the way it has happened. I'm not going to say, can the DCU be saved or can we salvage the DCU? No, I ain't got time for that. I got time for this. What do we have in the DCU? What have we built in the DCU? How can we take that as raw materials and use it going forward? Final Crisis. Still gonna happen. A version of Flashpoint Paradox kind of came out. It was meh. So I guess we go past that. So Final Crisis is what we're looking at, because that's a multiverse thing. We could look at still the showdown with Darkseid, you know. And so we have all these different characters. We got Black Adam, we got Shazam, right? We established Shazam. We established the Shazam family. We established Black Adam. Black Adam's now there in this universe. We've got the Flash. We're gonna have Blue Beetle. Booster Gold is down the road. We got Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. We've got Cyborg. We've got Aquaman. We've got all these characters, these main characters, right? We got movies on them. Harley Quinn's still a big character in the universe. We've got Joker in the universe. We haven't used him, but he's there. You know, the major players, we've got them. You know, we've got Darkseid. We have the Furies. We have, you know, other new gods. I assume Highfather and they are in there as well. So what I'm saying is, you start to see how rich this universe is. It's expanded out. You have Lex Luthor, all the villains. You know, Deathstroke's there. You know, Deadshot's still there. You know, we have Bloodsport. We have Peacemaker. Well, Peacemaker's dead. We have Ratcatcher. We have. Is the Shark still there? I can't remember. But we have one or two different characters in this universe. All these characters are there now. So we should utilize them. Amanda Waller's there, and so on and so on and so on. You know, what's his name? Hawkman is there, right? So maybe not the version of Hawkman that we want, but we have a Hawkman. So the universe has a lot in it. To just can that, or to say, oh, okay, we're going to do a soft reboot on that, is to hurt your universe. And the fact that your universe is already coming off of flops, the way to rejuvenate it is to anything you eliminated that didn't help the universe, that you thought didn't help the universe, maybe you need to put it back in. Inject the universe with something. And that's all I'm saying. So I hope that this video benefits everybody. I spent about an hour on this. I see that people are still watching, and that's good. I don't believe that the universe is dead or is dying or anything like that. Oh, well, it's pretty much kind of dying because these movies are not making money. They have a what they call it, a Blue Beetle battalion that they're using to try and get the fans motivated enough to go see the movie. I hope it helps it, because quite frankly, I'm not going to go see it. My mind hasn't changed on seeing the movie. I'm not very enthusiastic about it. I saw some clips. It's not interesting to me. They're saying, well, it's Latino. It's the first Latino movie and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Sasha Calle was the first Latino superhero. You know what I mean? How'd that work out? So I think ultimately in the end, if you want these movies to succeed, you're going to have to restore the Snyderverse, because a piece of the DCEU is missing. And if you do that, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to be very interested in these movies. They're going to watch them. They'll go to the cinema. They'll see them to support. They'll just go for support's sake, you know, because I'm hearing directors and people, whether it's Zack Snyder or David Ayer, they're begging people to go out to the cinema to see these movies. They're literally begging now. They're like, you know, we need, because Warner Bros. Needs the money to continue the universe, and this is how David Ayer might get a shot at his movie. This is what probably James Gunn is pitching to them or whatever, because James Gunn's ass is on the line. He's on the cutting floor. And he's afraid that he's going to get fired. So they're trying everything they possibly can to ensure that these movies make some kind of money, because he's the only person in Warner Bros. Right now that's leadership is just causing flops after flops. And I wish the best for Blue Beetle, I'll be honest with you, but quite frankly, I don't think that movie is going to make money. You know, Zack Snyder, you know, he's put his influence in there, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And people are saying, well, these are good people and everything. And every time a movie comes along, Warner Bros. Is pushing so hard to get the movie to work. But you're not doing the right things to get this movie to work. You, the guys, You put in a trailer. Who in their right mind is going to put Batman as a fascist in the trailer? And somehow you think that's funny. Poking fun at Batman is funny. It's not funny. It's not funny. So you lost the Batman fans just like that. It's the way how you approach things, the way how you're going about doing things. You think this is Marvel. This is not Marvel. The people who watch these movies are not Marvel fans, most of them. So when you approach things a certain way, when you treat people, creatives and people a certain way, you're going to get that. You're going to get a kickback. Right? Lego Batman did so well, and the Lego universe did so well because, yeah, it pokes fun at the characters, but it also teaches something, and it also is not trying to trash them. There's a difference between trying to trash a character. One director says we treat these characters with sacredness and concern. This is how the universe started, off of that. And you decide, no, they must be the butter jokes, and we must sodomize Wonder Woman, and we must trash Batman, and we must trash Superman. Okay, so you did it. How'd that work out for you? Right? The people who come to see these movies, the bulk of the people who come to see these movies, they're coming to see Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. They're coming to see Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. In fact, Batman. They're coming to see Batman first because you got a lot of Batman movies. While Superman and all those other things were flopping, Batman was working. So of all the characters you're going to trash, you chose in a trailer to trash Batman, and you're going to come back from that? They're not forgetting that. And then your head of DC fired Superman, showing that you just don't love the Trinity. And he's going to do a Superman movie. The guy that hates Superman is going to do a Superman movie. Really? Okay, then. Good luck. That's how the fans are looking at it. That's how the audience is looking at it. They're not going to forgive you, and they're not going to forget. So that's why Blue Beetle is not going to succeed. I don't care if Zack Snyder, I don't care if Jesus came down from heaven and said, watch Blue Beetle. They're not going to watch it. However, going forward, you're going to be able to take the Blue Beetle that flopped, to take all these characters, and with good storytelling, you're going to be able to revive the DCEU, whatever you want to call it. You're going to be able to do it because of the tools, but you have to embrace the Snyderverse. You have to embrace those early movies, whether they got good critical ratings or not. You have to embrace that. And then you have to do one more thing, Warner Brothers. You don't want to do it, but that's how you build trust. You have to embrace us, the so-called toxic fans. You're going to have to embrace us. And you're going to have to swallow your pride. If you're truly a shepherd and you want the sheep to know the voice of DC, you're going to do that. But if you don't want to do it, no problem. Don't expect us to listen and to hearken to you. We'll run from you like we're doing right now. We're going to run away. We're not going to watch your movies. You can call us toxic comment you want because we're not watching your movies. You can keep on threatening us, and you can keep on cursing us out, and you can keep on mistreating us. And the more you mistreat us is the more we won't come by you. We'll go somewhere else. Nice meeting you guys. I hope you guys have a great day. Again, the scripture, just for you guys who want to read it, it comes from the book of John, chapter 10, verses 1 through 5. I'm going to catch you guys later. I'm Christ I Am Disciple, a.k.a. Answer Philip. Peace.